Vegas aces, pink and laces, the hate was baseless from accounts with no faces. MVP races, make no mistakes, this is prime time TV, not history in the making, history right now. We about to see who's still here when the dust settle down, from counted out to standing out, to envy whoever, to envy foe, to 16 games, one in a row, to 13 games with Asia Wilson scoring 30 or more. She leads in points. She leads in blocks. She's top 5 in stocks. Math don't lie, but people do, and so are you if you're saying any other name than Asia Wilson for MVP. From Coach C, for your consideration, Hoops Tribe, welcome to episode 16. The playoffs have started. We are out with the regular season. That is cause for celebration. In this episode, we're going to get into some of my picks for the upcoming Kia Awards. We're going to talk about what coaches I think are in the danger zone now that the regular season is over with. And of course, it's day one of playoffs. So we're going to talk about my initial thoughts going into the first round. Y'all already know what I'm about to say. Let's talk hoops.
Let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops. What's the scoop, what's the scoop, what's the scoop? Let's talk hoops, let's talk hoops.
So let's get into some of these picks. If you didn't know, the voters for the Kia Awards are national journalists and broadcasters across the league. And there's no set criteria. Everything is subjective. So know that my thoughts are the same way. They're based off of my eye test throughout the season and the players that I felt were the most impactful, although there were so many players that had a great season. But up first, I have to say for most improved, Alisha Gray. I mean, when you look at it, last season, she was scoring 15.6 points per game. She's improved that to 18.4 points per game. She's also improved her field goal percentage from 40% to 45%, and her increase in production has translated into winning. And I think that is the most valuable thing when we look at most improved. How did they improve as an individual, and how did their improvements impact the game? Now, when I look at the most valuable player, make no mistake, Asia Wilson. I mean, she's averaging 23.4 points per game, 10.2 rebounds per game, 50% from the floor, 42% from three. Has she improved her free throw percentage by 5%? She would be in the 50, 40, 90 club as well. Now, I think before All-Star, Nafisa Collier and Alyssa Thomas were huge in the conversation. I think Alyssa Thomas was even more the top candidate than Nafisa Collier was, but narratives came into play, and Nafisa Collier was the most popular choice. But when we look at post All-Star, Asia was able to impact winning 13 30-plus games. And then in these 30-plus point games, she's having 10, 20 rebounds. It's like, I'm not just scoring 30-plus points, but I'm still playing defense. I'm still hustling on the boards. I'm still on these 50-50 balls. There's no other player that is as dominant as Asia Wilson. So, I mean, if you weren't aware from my intro, that was my choice. I wanted to get that on out the way since that was an easy decision. Defensive player of the year, I'm going back with Asia Wilson. 2.3 blocks per game, 1.6 steals per game. She's number one in defensive win shares. Again, she impacts winning to the point where the Aces went from below 500 to the second best team in the league. And honestly, I think that they're the best team in the league. They just ran out of time. Had the season gone on for a couple more games, the Aces would be the number one team in the league. They're better than the Lynx. They have the better roster. Now they're playing better basketball. So yeah, Asia Wilson for Defensive Player of the Year as well. Coach of the Year, Coach Natalie Nakase, first coach to lead an expansion team to the playoffs. That's not easy to do. Getting to the playoffs is not easy to do, especially with everybody playing better than ever. This was one of the best seasons in WNBA basketball. She came in and dominated. The Valkyries are a team to watch. Coach Reeve, before their first game in the playoffs, said that they're not looking at the Valkyries as an underdog. They're looking at the Valkyries as a team that can beat any team in the league. So Coach Nakase is my coach of the year, although it was a difficult decision because Coach Smesko has impacted winning to the point where the Atlanta Dream are number 3 in the league and have a strong chance of making it to the finals. Now, the rookie of the year is undisputed at this point. I think that Kiki Iriafen and Sonia Citron were in the conversation early on in the season. I think they had a very consistent start. I think that Paige Beckers was a slow roast and she arrived. And once she arrived, she never left. So Paige with 19.2 points per game, 5.4 assists per game, 47% from the floor, and 33% from 3 is my rookie of the year. Now, 6th player of the year. This has been a difficult decision because there were so many players coming off of the bench and contributing for their teams. Naz Hillsman, before she got into that starting lineup, was my 6th player of the year. I think that Naz is the player that can impact both sides of the ball. She's expanding her 3-point range. And honestly, she's in the conversation for most improved as well. Dana Evans had a strong year for the Aces, really an anchor in many games for the Aces. And without her, I don't think they would have pulled off some of those wins. So Dana Evans was another player that I was considering for that 6th player of the year. But I'm going to give it to Natisha Heidemann. Natisha Heidemann averaging 9.1 points per game, 2.8 assists per game, 49% from the floor, 37% from 3. There were times where Courtney didn't show up and it had to be Tisha. You know, she held it down. She's had a couple of 20-point games at this point. She impacts both sides of the ball. She's really good at pushing pace. And she's a huge reason why they're the best team in the league at this point. Executive of the year, I'm going to give it to the Washington Mystics. Now, I don't know who is actually calling the shot, so I just put Sydney and Jamila Wyman up there because they hold the most draft capital. I think they made the best moves in the draft. They got the strongest players, and they positioned themselves for the best opportunities for the 2026 draft. And I think that they did a really good job at their scout. They knew their personnel. I don't think a lot of people anticipated Sonia Citron having the type of season that she had. Kiki Iriafen, when you look at her numbers throughout her collegiate career, you don't know for sure if her game is going to translate in the WNBA. They made wise decision in making those decisions with the draft in 2025, but 2026 holds even more gems, and they position themselves to be a part of the future. In a couple of years, the Washington Mystics are probably in the finals because of the decisions that they're making right now, and it's all because of, these two people here. Sportsmanship Award, I have to give it to Erica Wheeler. She elevates the game with respect, humility, and she's relentless. She's been such a core piece to the Seattle Storm team. I don't think anyone anticipated her playing the role that she has played. When you're looking at their roster and you see Skylar Diggins-Smith and you see Alicia Clark to start the season, that they had strong people, and they thought that Alicia Clark was going to be essentially what Erica Wheeler has been for this team, which is that anchor point. And she's always going above and beyond. When she sees a player down and out, she helps them up. She keeps the energy up. She's entertainment, and she's the heartbeat of the Seattle team, and I think that she deserves that Sportsmanship Award. Hoops Tribe, at the end of the 2024 season, 7 franchises parted ways with their head coach, and here we are again at the end of the regular season wondering if we'll see some of those same things. The turnover rate as a WNBA coach in this climate is unforgiving. There's no patience. Teams want to win right now. So today, you and I will play a game, and we'll go through the list of coaches, and we'll judge whether or not we feel they're in the clear or in danger. Going from top to bottom, Coach Noelle Quinn. Do you think that Coach Quinn is in the clear or in danger? I'm calling this hot. I think Coach Quinn is in danger. I think that Seattle has underperformed and underachieved, and I don't know if that franchise is going to continue to stand for those results when they have such a strong roster. You can obviously see that Seattle has their future in mind. So I don't know if Coach Quinn is in that future, despite her being such a strong coach. I really admire some of her decision making when it comes to the X's and O's. But unless she pulls out a championship this season, I think that her role is in danger. Coach Lynn Roberts. I think Coach Roberts is in the clear. I think everyone has bought in. We saw that she's able to get the offense going. They're the number 2 scoring team in the league. They just have to hone in on their defense. And I think that late hire with Latricia Tremmel was designed to do just that. They just need time. It takes time for defense to really click. If the Aces aren't example enough, I feel like the Aces have been working on their defense for the past 2 seasons, and it finally started to click towards the end of this season. So it takes time to build that chemistry. They have a new coach. They're headed in the right direction. So I think that the Sparks give Coach Roberts more time. Coach Sidney Johnson, is he in the clear or in danger? Yeah, I think Sidney Johnson is in the clear. The Washington Mystics were able to overachieve any expectations set out for them. They've made great decisions thus far. I think the franchise is really happy with what Coach Johnson has been able to do. Rashid Mezian, is he in the clear or in danger? You know, any other year, I would say that Coach Mezian is definitely in danger. I thought that there were a lot of questionable things that happened throughout the season as far as like rotations. I don't know if I really saw a clear identity for their defense or their offense, rather. I think that they have some strong pieces. I think they had some really strong rookies who were able to see some growth just throughout trial and error with getting that playing time. I thought he really started to trust them towards the end of the season more than the beginning. I think that injuries forced him into some rotational calls. And, you know, sometimes injuries work out for the best in that way. But I think due to so much being up in the air in Connecticut, that he gets another year just because they don't have time to hire anybody else. Like, where are they going to find time to hire a new head coach when they're still trying to figure out if the team is going to stay in Connecticut? They got government officials stepping in to warn the WNBA to not interfere with the sale of their team. So there's a lot of front office drama going on in Connecticut, and I don't anticipate them taking the time out to do this when, you know, it's still questionable who's going to be the owner of this team. Coach Tyler Marsh, is he in the clear or in danger? I think that Coach Marsh is in the clear. I think he was the GM's pick, right? Jeff has full faith in him. He made that clear in his exit interview. They have faith in what Coach Marsh is able to do. He said he thinks that he's the guy for the job to turn things around. I think the danger more so lies in the eyes of the public opinion. And I don't think the public opinion is really fed up with Coach Marsh as much as they're fed up with ownership and the decisions of the GM. I felt like after listening to Jeff's exit interview that I have a better idea of what they're looking for, more so than I've had in the past. I think that he took more accountability in this exit interview than I've heard him take throughout the season last year or earlier in the season this year. I think that they took some risk and they didn't consider the impact of the risk, making the decision to get Courtney Vandersloot and Ariel Atkins. He said that he made those decisions for culture because they're veterans and they understand the winning mindset that they need to have. Courtney Vandersloot's won championships. Ariel Atkins was in Washington for their championship, but not being realistic enough to know that, okay, Courtney Vandersloot is up in age, so she's not going to be able to play 38-minute games. And I think that there has to be, and he obviously knows that because he said it, that there has to be moves made to secure a point guard with some experience. And I think that they tried to do that with Saveki Uzun. The issue is Chicago doesn't have a lot to attract a veteran. They're going to make decisions to go elsewhere. Like everybody's like Odyssey Sims at the point where they needed to sign a new guard when Courtney Vandersloot was out and Odyssey Sims was available. But if I had to choose to go to the Indiana Fever or Chicago, and I look at what the Indiana Fever have versus what Chicago has and what Chicago's track record, I'm not going to want to go to Chicago either. So with that, they have to be realistic and know that their draft capital is more valuable. They have to put more thought in what they're going to do in the draft. And it felt like they didn't see, or they weren't looking, because they obviously didn't see as much value in some of the pieces that they could have got in the 2025 draft, which is why they made those moves to essentially give them away to secure Ariel Atkins. Now, Ariel Atkins is a great player, more of a supporting role in the championship in 2019 for the Washington Mystics. Had a strong supporting role there, and that's what she's had for the majority of her career. She's been a supporter to another elusive guard. So Ariel Atkins was a strong move, but then it's like, what else? Because she needs something else in order to be that player that they want her to be. Instead, she have to score 30-something points a game for them to be successful. But she had to transition, and we saw that in her turnovers, where she's on ball a lot more, and they're relying on her a lot more than what a team has had to rely on her for in her previous years in the W. So a lot of things I felt weren't necessarily considered by Jeff in the front office, and that put Coach Marsh in a tight situation. And I think that they know that. So I don't anticipate them making any changes in the head coaching personnel. I think they also have really strong assistant coaches. So we're just going to see what happens. The biggest thing is the personnel. They got to figure out how to get people in there, and they're going to have to do that through the draft. When we're looking at draft picks for Chicago in the 2026 draft, they have a first-round pick, but it's not their own. It's owned by the Minnesota Lynx. And that's great news for any rookie that is going in the first round. They don't have to go to a struggle team. So Chicago does own Phoenix's first-round pick and holds swap rights with Connecticut. And they hold 2 second-round picks and 1 third. So the 2026 class is a strong class. So we're going to see what Chicago is able to build through the draft, which has to be their strategy at this point. When we're looking at Chicago's numbers from last season to now, their 2024 records was 13-27, and their 2025 record was 10-34. So they only won 3 more games last season than this season. And honestly, the roster last season was miles better than what this roster is. I think that Kennedy Carter, Dana Evans, Marina Mabrey, for the stint that she was there, and that's a really strong backcourt. They still ended up being 6th in the Eastern Conference. They're 6th in the East today. Last season, they were 10th in the league. This year, they are 12th overall in the league. And finally, Chris Conclanis, is he in the clear or in danger? Now, I know this is going to be unpopular, but I think Coach Conclanis is in the clear. I think that he's obviously another GM pick. Kurt Miller has more confidence in him than you and I ever will. They have that rapport. They've worked together a few times. And towards the end of the season, I think things started to make sense. I really like the decision in moving Haley Jones to the post. I think that that was the best move for her career, and it probably extended her career because she's been playing in that guard spot, but realistically, there's just so many good guards in the league. Not saying that there aren't a lot of good forwards in the league, but the skill set and being a guard versus being a forward are different, and she was really able to stand out in that post spot. She averaged 8 points a game. That's 4 times more than she's averaged her entire career. Her efficiency is up. She shot 46% from the floor in Dallas. In Atlanta, she was 33% in her rookie season and 39% in 2024. I think that once they made those trades, they got Nalissa Smith to Vegas, they got Lee Yuru in, they got Dejanay out. Dallas started to make sense. I think Arike started to really buy in and really want to make it work with her and Paige, because a lot of people are still saying, that's not going to work. What is Arike going to do next season? A lot of people aren't confident that she's going to come back to Dallas, or whether Dallas is going to want her back. Let me say that. People are unsure if Arike will have a home in Dallas. I'm still not 100% sold on the duo between her and Paige. I think that Dallas is going to be able to build through the draft just like Chicago is, maybe even better. And with that, they need to, I hate to say it, but might look at some younger talent who aren't as set in their ways, and it's harder to break habits than to build habits. So I think that Dallas is in a really good position. I don't know if Coach Conclanis is the coach for the team, but all I'm saying is I think that they give him more time to figure it out. All right, now let's get into these first round matchups. Over in bracket 1, we have the Minnesota Lynx versus the Golden State Valkyries. The first game will be in Minneapolis. And I know the popular thing to do this season is to count out the Valkyries, and I'm not going to be inconsistent here. I'm going to count them out. I don't think that they have a chance in this first round. I think that there's going to be a sweep. They've been swept by the Lynx all season, and I don't think that's going to change. They're just too strong of a team. They're just too together. They've been here before, and the Valkyries have not, and I don't think that they're ready yet. I think that this is a great position for them to be in, because if they're able to do what they've been able to do this season from the ground up, this is a great benchmark, and it's going to be a great experience for them to have moving forward. But we're talking about Kayla McBride. We're talking about Nafisa Collier, Elena Smith, who is a Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner, Courtney Williams, Shell Reef. This is that iron sharpens iron moment for Coach Nakase to have to play chess with an opponent like Shell Reef, but with the losses of Kayla Thornton for the season, when we look at the injury report for the Valkyries going into this game, they're without Kayla Thornton, we knew that, right? But they're down Tiffany Hayes. She's been having issues with her knee. Any time that the Valkyries are down a player, it means so much to this team. But what they've been able to do all season is fill those gaps. Some other person, it's always next man up. So we're going to see. I just don't think that the Valkyries have a fighting chance in this round. Also in bracket 1, we have the Liberty versus the Mercury, which people are already flagging as the most exciting series in this bunch. And I think that this one might be the closest, because Phoenix is a team all season. We've said, oh, this is a championship contending team. Towards the end of the season, I'd say post Dewana Bonner transaction, they have moments of struggle because, like we all knew, that's a big piece to add into a system. And then you have the New York Liberty, who's also been limping as well. It's going to be tough. And the Liberty are still finding their stride, but they've been here before. They're the reigning champs. They understand what it takes to get through these rounds. The playoffs are different from the regular season. We saw last season with the Lynx beating out the New York Liberty in the regular season, but the Liberty knew what to do. But right now, physicality is not on the Liberty side. When we're looking at the nuts and bolts of this game, we're looking at AT's facilitation versus the New York Liberty's length. And the length and size of the New York Liberty has bothered teams all season and last season with Jonquel Jones, Brianna Stewart, and now Emma Mieseman, who floats around. I mean, yes, she spends some time around the post area, but she really likes to get around the perimeter. Phoenix won the series 3-1, and when you look at the games, every time Phoenix had a new player stepping up to be that leading scorer. On June 19th, Monique McConney, 21 points. Alyssa Thomas had 18 points, 15 rebounds, and 7 assists. Another game in June, Satu Sabley, 25 points. Phoenix hit 18 threes. In July, It was Sabrina Ionescu. New York Liberty won that game. She scored 29 points. Jonquel Jones had 20 and 11. And in August, it was Kalia Copper, 22 points. Alyssa Thomas, 14 points, 9 assists. The New York Liberty ended the season on a 3-game win streak, while the Phoenix Mercury ended their season on a 3-game lose streak. But with all that said, I'm still going with Phoenix to win this series. Now, over in bracket 2, we have the Las Vegas Aces versus the Seattle Storm. And this is a disappointing matchup because I was really hoping to see Seattle Storm matched up against the Minnesota Lynx, since we've seen such good matchups against those two teams throughout the regular season. But we can say the same thing about Seattle and the Aces. They split the season 2-2. But I think that the Aces have the edge at this point in the season. Obviously, they're on that 16-game win streak, and everyone's like, well, all good things come to an end. I'm not saying that the Seattle Storm are going to repeat last season, in which they were swept by the Aces in the playoffs. They may get one win. We look at their roster, one of the strongest rosters in the league, man. Nneka Ogwumike is having an MVP season of her own, has she not been in the running with the likes of Alyssa Thomas, Nafisa Collier, and Asia Wilson. Then we look at Ezi Magbagor, who hasn't been impactful offensively, but she's still a threat around the rim. It's going to make it difficult for the Aces to get anything inside. So that means that Jackie Young, Chelsea Gray, Jewel Lloyd, Dana Evans, the guards are going to have to be on point. And that's what we've seen from the Aces for the past 16 games, is everyone is showing up to play. And I don't think that's going to stop now. This team is mentally locked in, and that is what they have over the Seattle Storm. At their best, the Seattle Storm is one of the best defensive teams in the league, but they don't have the mental toughness to crank out a series on the Aces at this point. When we're looking at the depth, we're going roster for roster. Seattle does not have the depth that the Aces have at this point, and that is going to be huge because this is a quick turnaround. This first round is going to go by quick. You got 3 games to figure it out, and really, you got 2. Dominique Malonga is going to be an X factor for Seattle. How much are they going to turn loose the reins for the rookie in this playoff series? And she's been so impactful for them offensively and would have been a front runner for 6th player of the year had she gotten more time in the beginning of the season, but she had to go through that whole learning curve. And I think that she's learned very quickly and has a bright future with the team. Ball security is going to be huge for the Aces, and they've already been trending in the right direction. Before the win streak, when they were 14-14, they were allowing 35.9 opponent points off of turnovers. They've gotten that number down to 33.6. Bottom line is Seattle has shown too much inconsistency in the regular season for me to have faith in the fact that they will pull off a series against an Aces team that has done nothing but trend upwards over the last 16 games. And finally, in bracket 2, we have the Indiana Fever versus the Atlanta Dream. Now, I take the Atlanta Dream to win this series, but it will not be an easy road. When we're looking at their matchups over the regular season, they split 2-2. Atlanta's 2 wins were a little mucky. In one of the games, they only won by 1 point, and their strengths were getting the ball into Brianna Jones and downhill reps from Alicia Gray. In Indiana's 2 wins, it was second half surges, and the culprit was Kelsey Mitchell. So they're going to have to get Kelsey Mitchell under control and slow down Aaliyah Boston's playmaking. Really, I would rather push Aaliyah Boston into being the scorer versus the facilitator, because their offense is too good when Aaliyah Boston is facilitating the ball. I think she's getting into her Alyssa Thomas bag or her Candace Parker bag and being that point forward, but her assists are high this season. When we're looking at her numbers, year-over-year growth, as a rookie, she averaged 2.2 assists per game. Last season, 3.2 assists, and right now she's up to 3.7, and she's had some, high assist game, 6 or more. So I think that getting the ball out of Aaliyah Boston's hands so she's not able to facilitate the offense. I don't know how you slow down Kelsey Mitchell, but they got to figure out a way to do it. And Atlanta has to stick to the game plan with feeding the interior, but Alicia Gray and Ron Howard also have to be ready along the perimeter. Maya Caldwell has been such a strong piece for the Atlanta Dream with being able to be that lockdown defender. So we may see a Maya Caldwell and Kelsey Mitchell matchup. Maya is also good with getting downhill when they need those get-ahead baskets. So Maya Caldwell might end up being the X factor. The thing about the Atlanta Dream, they have a couple of players that could be X factors for them. Even though Shatori Walker-Kimbrough has not been as consistent this season as I expected her to be coming in from Washington, at any moment she can have a big game. Tahina Pow, this will be her first ever playoff, and this is going to be such a great experience for the promising rookie. But I think that she's been in these situations before. She comes from a winning culture with the Gamecocks. She's ready for this moment, and I'm excited to see how she meets it. I think she's going to be able to hit some big shots for this Atlanta Dream team in this series. Unfortunately, the Atlanta Dream are still prone to late game slippage. So now more than ever, they're going to have to finish the game. When we're looking at this Atlanta Dream team, best season in franchise history, third best team is going to be tough, but on paper, this Atlanta Dream team is a championship contender. And when we talk about these things, I think it's important to talk about the history of the Atlanta Dream because, for one, it's close to home. Like when I look at Atlanta, for me, it's less than 2 hours away from my hometown. Yeah. It established in 2008. That was the first season. In 2008, I was going into my senior year of high school. So the majority of my life, I did not have an Atlanta team to aspire to. And it's so important. And we're seeing now more than ever that in order to be it, you have to see it. So I love that kids here in Georgia and the South, because it's the only team in the South for miles. They're getting to see this high-level basketball. But I don't want there to be any confusion because Atlanta Dream went to the finals in 2010, 2011, and 2013. So 2 back-to-back years. They skipped a year and then went back. So Atlanta has had something to say for a while. And when you look back to who was on that team during that championship run, Angel McCoughtry. When we're looking at 2010 and 2011, Angel McCoughtry was that small forward. She was actually drafted the #1 pick in 2009. The next season, Atlanta goes 19-15 in the regular season, makes it all the way to the championship where they met the Seattle Storm. Sue Bird, Swin Cash, Lauren Jackson, Tanisha Wright. Funny enough, Tanisha Wright was on that Seattle Storm team that ended up winning that championship. So they caught a team in their prime. But that's cool. Angel McCoughtry was like, we're going to run it back. Same head coach. So 2011, they run it back. And this time they meet the Minnesota Lynx. The glory days of the Minnesota Lynx with Maya Moore, Simone Augustus, Lindsay Whalen. They're swept again. 2013, this time they got a new coach because after the 2011 loss in the finals, there was some type of incident between Marinelle Meters and Angel McCoughtry. Now, those who watch know that Angel was a fiery player, very passionate. It looked like the franchise sided with the player and the coach was fired and the assistant coach ended up stepping up to the plate. His name was Fred Williams. And when Fred took over as the interim coach, Angel McCoughtry was suspended indefinitely, almost immediately, for violating team rules. Now, what rules she broke were not specified at the time. So 2013, they met that same Minnesota Lynx team and Minnesota went on to sweep them again. And that was the last time that Atlanta made it to the finals. Angel McCoughtry went on to stay with the team until 2020, but she did miss some years through injury and she took a sabbatical 1 year as well. Now, regardless of how you feel about Angel McCoughtry, she is an ATL legend. And I think that the Dream should do more to honor her, to be honest, and the legacy that she left behind of winning. So this Atlanta Dream team has the opportunity to do something that hasn't been done in over a decade. And this feels different because it's a lot more even spread with the talent. When you look at those rosters that Angel McCoughtry was on, it was strong, but it wasn't Ron Howard, Alicia Gray, Breonna Jones, BG. I think that they are in a position to take it all the way to the semis, but when it comes to them beating the Aces, I don't know if they've honed in enough on those very small details, the details that you have to have down in order to win a championship. I don't think that they're there just yet, but they are very close, and this is going to be a great experience. But first, more than anything, they have to handle business against Indiana, which is a team that is about fight, and they're about defense. And we know that defense wins games. We know that Stephanie White has the clipboard to get them where they need to be. So no minutes off for the Atlanta Dream. But what are your thoughts, Hoops Tribe? How do you feel about these first round matchups? Were there any moments where you disagree? Do you have a different layout of how this thing is going to go? Drop your thoughts in the comments and let's talk hoops. Hoops Tribe, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate every single view, comment, like, subscribe, all of the things, because it helps me to continue to do what I do. Now, if you want more hoops talk, it doesn't stop here on YouTube. Make sure you follow me on all platforms from Threads to Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's all there. Head over to womensbasketball365.com where you'll find articles from myself and other team members. And we're giving you coverage throughout the playoffs, and we're expanding into NCAA basketball. You know, March Madness will be here before you know it, and you need a home for all of your coverage, and it's here at Women's Basketball 365. As always, folks, like, subscribe, comment, and let's talk hoops.